waiting room and we can get started. All right, wonderful. Well, good afternoon and thank you so much for being with us, all of you. We are here in 2021. We made it. We are especially grateful that you're with us today for this presentation and conversation. I just wanted to share before we dive in that upcoming leadership summits in the months ahead will include an update from admissions on the changing landscape of college admissions and what's happening at Gonzaga, and also a financial update and check-in on our endowment performance with our university CFO, Joe Smith. So those dates are being confirmed very shortly, and you'll see them coming your way in an email. And to Brooke's point earlier, I also wanted to note that while virtual meetings are now a big part of our daily experience, and we're getting to know our individual thresholds and comfort levels for being on camera and on screens during the day, and being mindful that some of you are on your lunch hour right now. For this meeting and for all of our leadership summit sessions, you are welcome to have your video on or off, whatever way is most comfortable for you. And please know that your presence is seen and known either way. The subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion is certainly resonating on a national stage as well as at Gonzaga. There is much passion, emotion, and calls for action around this topic right now. Dr. Kelly will share more in just a few minutes about what our vision is and what is currently in motion on a university-wide level here at Gonzaga. And I wanted to note that it's also a specific focus area for advancement and for us in alumni relations. In alumni relations, we are continuing to evolve in our strategic planning process and are engaging in both internal and external conversations about opportunities for strengthening engagement through more inclusive efforts, such as affinity strategies and program offerings. And while our goal is to progress and strengthen in this area as a university and an alumni office, one of the most important action steps in moving forward is the dialogue around this topic. Dialogue with you, our community, our GU family, and our stakeholders. And this is what might make us a bit unique in our approach from the corporation across the city or the university down the road. Dialogue is rooted very firmly in our Jesuit foundation and values, and we want our vision to be informed by, affirmed by, or given feedback to by all of you. While we may not find all of the answers today, we will take an important step in gaining understanding. We know that both Jesus and the Jesuits went to the margins and they spoke about justice, but they didn't rush the dialogue. So we do expect to have some time after Dr. Kelly's presentation for question and answer, and you are welcome to put your questions in the chat or take yourself off of mute. And please do introduce yourself, as Robin is still getting to know our Gonzaga community, as we haven't been able to be on campus and getting to meet each other there. But also know that the conversation doesn't stop at 1 o'clock. If you have questions, thoughts, or perspectives that you'd like to share separate from this conversation, please reach out to myself or any of my colleagues from the university here today. We're joined by our Vice President of Advancement, Joe Poss, of course, Dr. Kelly. And I wanted to give, I hope he's here, I lost track. If he's not, he will be joining us. A special welcome to Dr. Raymond Reyes here with us as well today. Associate Provost and Chief Diversity Officer at Gonzaga, and a familiar face who many of you know well from your time on campus. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robin Kelly, Associate Chief Diversity Officer at Gonzaga. Dr. Kelly brings successful experience in employee labor relations and human resources, both as a university administrator and as an independent consultant. Her experiences include managing all aspects of university investigations, equity, diversity, inclusion, complaints, grievances, training and education, and more. She describes her leadership style as collaborative and founded in consensus building among diverse groups of internal and external constituents. Her formal education includes a PhD in higher education administration from Iowa State and a bachelor's degree in economics and finance from State University, New York, Buffalo. In addition, she has earned a certificate in diversity management from Cornell University. And it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Kelly.
And Cara, I'm gonna just echo Dr. Kelly. Hold on, we have to praise on you just a little bit. Cara, that's a wonderful introduction in terms of our topic today, but also just of a new colleague, and that's something that I just wanted to mention here. Dr. Kelly joined us. Robin, remind me, was it July?
July the 20th.
July the 20th, and she has physically moved and bounced back and forth in the country, but making Spokane her home. It's one thing to start a new job in general, but it's a whole other thing to do it in the middle of a pandemic. And it's a brand new position, pulling colleagues together from across campus to work on this important work. And she has done it with unbelievable grace. She has done it with heart. And it's been a real privilege getting to know her and work with her. And so I just wanted to give a little shout out, Robin. You've been just an absolute gift to all of us in the short few months that you've joined, and the resiliency you showed to jump into our community and so quickly become a part of it is really a blessing. So thank you, Robin, and thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. Now, I don't know how to follow that at all.
Just do what you do. Just do what you do.
Okay. Thank you both. Okay. Here, hopefully it won't mess up too much. Is everyone seeing my screen okay? Okay.
Looks good.
Okay. Only it's not moving for some reason. Oh, there we go. Okay, I want to start with this. I think this is a me in a nutshell. I think about the work that I do. So I just love this quote. I do my best because I'm counting on you, counting on me, by Maya Angelou. So all about me, I thought, it'd be great to tell you just a little bit about me. So I'm from the other side of the world or the country. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I'm a native Buffalonian. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I'm an avid sports fan. And I'm looking forward to the Buffalo Bills being in the playoffs this week. And I don't know if we can beat Kansas, but we'll see. So I love all sports. I have 5 uncles, and my husband is an avid sports fan. We literally watch every sport there is, I think we do. Little unknown fact, I graduated from the Performing Arts Academy in Buffalo in high school with a dance high school diploma, as well as a math, now they call it AP, but it was math honors. High school diploma. I was going to be a ballerina, a dancer, like I was going to commit my life to that. And then my calculus teacher, she quickly talked me out of that. She described the life of a dancer that didn't seem too appealing at the time, but I think she did that on purpose. I love to read. Research is my jam. What I mean by that is I love research. I like to look up things that's related to my work, but just to learn and find out about different things and different aspects of things that I doesn't have to be related to my job or work. I'm a Christian, and I'm actually of Baptist faith. I'm married with 3 kids, and I have a dog, and I should have put his name on here, Bear. I can't leave Bear out. He's like one of my kids. So Kara talked a little bit about my academic experience. So I did work at the State University of New York at Buffalo. I worked in the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion office there. I also worked in Human Resources and the Employee Labor Relations office. But near and dear to my heart was the work that I did in the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion office, and I was an assistant director there. And I handled all the diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives for the university at that time. I also worked at Iowa State University, and I was the director of the Office of Equal Opportunity and a de facto chief diversity officer, because I had responsibilities for DEI there as well. And then North Carolina State University, I was associate vice provost, and I was second to the chief diversity officer there, similar to my role at Gonzaga And I managed all the equity programs as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then I dabbled in independent consulting, both at an LLC and then my own consulting firm. My leadership philosophy is that I'm really supportive of authentic leadership style, and authentic leadership style just says that you bring your personal and professional self. There's no difference between the two. Now, I also can be very transactional and tactical when it comes to getting things done. I like the structure. To get things done and get it off the ground. I'm able to take a vision and realize it and make it into a sustainable program. So I have that aspect about me as well. But I understand doing DEI work, you have to have a certain level of inspiration. So I can be very inspirational, engage others into a common cause or common vision. I believe leadership involves change and understanding that something must change, and always challenge the status quo. So even if we think we're perfect, where we're supposed to be, there's always opportunity for growth and learning. A leader must motivate and inspire people through hope and a strong belief system. And I think that was part of the reason why I was so attracted to the role at Gonzaga. You should lead the organization towards a vision. Leadership means cultivating relationship, also valuing the individual for all the various dimensions of diversity that they bring to the table. And that ties into the authentic leadership style, because authentic leaders ask of everyone to bring their authentic self to the work environment and respects and appreciate those differences, and tie values and principles to the morals of the work. Walk the talk. So it's not enough to have very flowery and beautiful language about diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. We need to walk the talk. And that means action, right? People want to see action. And then find a balance between my own identities and leadership, understanding that I'm a woman of color and I may be perceived certain ways, and how I navigate my role as a leader in doing this work, understanding that I am relating to people in marginal identities that I might share with them. So a little bit about the office. So the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which for a very long time was just Raymond Reyes, and he's the Associate Provost and CDO. But now we have what is the framework of an office that I'm hoping that is sustainable and will grow. So it's Raymond, myself, Nagmana Shirazi, and she's our Office and Communications Coordinator. Wendy Thompson, she's the Director of the Office of Tribal Relations, and Christine Hoover, who is the Director of Gonzaga's Institute for Hate Studies. And we make up the whole team. Now, when I came on board, our office had a mission and vision statement. And so this is part of what I want to add to our mission and vision of the office as it grows. And I think it's complementary to those both. And don't get tied up on the words inclusive excellence. So inclusive excellence really is just a framework or strategy or methodology to embed diversity, equity, inclusion into the entire fabric of the institution. I like to use this analogy. So say, for example, a faculty member or a leader says, hey, I have this wonderful program and it's going to be great. It's going to do this, it's going to do that. Well, the VP for finance or the chief financial officer says, hey, hello, what's the budget? What's the FTE that you need for this situation? How does this fit into our financial strategy? Well, under the same vein, I want people to, anything that they do at the university, to think about how does this, whatever it is I want to do, whatever it is I'm doing, how does this fit into our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals and objectives? How does this add value to diversity, equity, inclusion at the university? And that is what I want people to have in their mind. Now, these 4 principles of embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into the institution starts with access and equity. And this is the place where you have to look at the historical context. This is where you look at racism, sexism, and all the different isms. And you really have to develop approaches and strategies to address it. So acknowledge it, address it, and eliminate it. But access and equity is all about the historical context, and it's all about eliminating or eradicating those isms. Diversity in formal and informal curriculum. How do we make sure that it's diverse, and that when we're telling stories or looking at the curriculum, it includes all the various perspectives of different people. And then we have to look at the campus climate, and campus climate starts with inclusion, right? We should be having welcoming, inclusive environment, but eventually move towards a sense of belonging, that no one has to be included, because there is it may be a power differential in inclusion, but belonging, when people move all the way to belonging, that is the goal. We want people to feel like they belong at the university. And then student learning and development. Now, researchers say that students are the heart and soul of a university. And they say for this inclusive excellence, or embedding diversity, equity, inclusion in everything, there needs to be a focus on student intellectual and social development, purposeful development and utilization of organizational resources to enhance student learning. There needs to be attention to cultural differences that learners bring to the educational experience, which will in turn enhance the university, and then a welcoming community that engages all of its diversity in the service of students and organizational learning. And some researchers feel that this is the focus on students. Now, faculty can play a critical role in improving our campus climate for students as well as for faculty and staff. There are two key or primary things that faculty can have a strong impact on: teaching and an impact on student learning, hiring faculty, and retention. So I always say that retention is equally or just as important as recruitment or hiring. And it's the other side of the same coin. So if you do a great job with recruiting, but not a good job with retention, you're back at square one. Now, administrators and staff, they also have a role at a university when it comes to being inclusive or inclusive excellence, or embedding diversity, equity, inclusion into everything. I won't go over the whole list, but I'm going to touch upon some of them. But making sure administrators can make sure that resources are directed towards the individual faculty and departments that delineate how they will, integrate diversity, equity, inclusion to their day-to-day practices. Administrators and staff needs to be part of creating that environment that I talked about that is inclusive, and moving towards building a sense of community and a sense of belonging. Units and departments need to be held accountable for their progress in making excellence inclusive. So that needs to be a key. And then I'll touch upon another one. They need to construct an acknowledgement and a reward system around contributions towards this work. I mean, it's hard work, but we need to be able to acknowledge that and make sure that people are being, and when reward can be, additional professional development, it could manifest in different ways, but we need to acknowledge people out here doing a great work. Now, the overall office vision that I have, and I've talked about it, and I think, Raymond and I are on the same page, is that, first we need a strategic diversity, equity, inclusion plan for the university. It's going to be the blueprint for how we move forward and how we develop a cohesive strategy for the entire campus. And that goes into my second bullet, where we need to institutionalize programs and strategies and initiatives that are sustainable for change and part of the organization. There's a lot of great work going on campus, but it's scattered. It's all over the place. And we may have some duplication of effort. So we need to connect the natural synergies and make sure we're leveraging our talents and expertise in a way that, we have a strategy and we're meeting our goals and objectives, which is access, equity, creating a campus environment that is welcoming and inclusive. And then also a vision for the office in and of itself is to solidify the central Office of Diversity role as the institutional focus for DEI. So that we are the institutional focus. We're the subject matter experts. No, we can't do everything, but we are the hub, the core, the center for DEI at the university. Now, we're doing this work in an external and internal environment. The context that we're doing this work in is, quite naturally what happened on January the 6th, the insurrection, the election, the global pandemic, which has highlighted healthcare disparities among groups, racial groups, social economic groups as well. Protests around the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the 17-year-old that shot 2 protesters and killed them and injured another in Wisconsin. Reports that immigrant women have been subjected to unnecessary hysterectomies, the passing of John Lewis, the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the shifting demographics. The reality is that the United States is becoming more and more and more diverse. And so those are some of the external things that are happening. And then the persistent societal inequities. Now, internally, there have been a number of things. So the video, Where Were You When, and a number of incidents that's happened on campus. But most recently, the Black Student Union Zoom attack is something internally that, has some context around the work that we're doing. And that's when a group of students were having a meeting, and then it was a Zoom bombing attack. And the BSU students were subjected to racial slurs, threats of violence, and violence towards now was President-elect Biden. Now, they had a number of demands, which included updates about the investigation, Gonzaga provided therapists of color, wanting to feel safe, and most notably a town hall. So what are we doing? Well, in particular to the BSU incident, which was a lot of times student activism can shed to light things that we should be doing or we're already doing, but we're not notifying campus of the things that we're doing. And so good can come out of student activism. So we created a response team and have a number of safety measures that we put in place. We've given regular updates about the investigation. We actually did have the town hall on December the 7th, 2020. The Student Affairs Department has hired 2 counselors of color. They are looking at the restorative justice practices that they have in place to make sure that we have more diversity and that our students of color are not doing all the heavy lifting in those processes. And then we're also looking at restructuring the bias team, our office along with Student Affairs. There have been a number of other student activists that were in support of BSU and that, we're looking at some of their concerns, which are similar to the BSU students. Our Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion developed SMART goals in relation to the BSU demands and are committed to bringing activism to that committee. We received a faculty letter that was to administration that was in support of BSU, and we're looking at responding to that. And then a faculty senate letter, which was a little different from that first letter, that really called other faculty members to help support the students and help in terms of what they can do in their classrooms and how they relate to students. And potentially we're going to have a town hall in the spring of 2021. We have a website, and you can just go to the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion website, and that's where we have our response and some FAQs there for continuing information. Now, I mentioned briefly about the council, and this is a part of what we're doing. So the council is advisory to the president, the provost, and the chief diversity officer, and it's aligned with the university's strategic plan, and it pursues its mission by collaborating with faculty, staff, and students. It's 1/3 faculty, 1/3 students, and 1/3 staff. The biggest thing I want you to kind of know about this council is that they're the brain trust, they're advisory, they're supporting us, and they're helping with really developing a strategic plan for DEI. I want to call to your attention the Liberal Arts College's Racial Equity Leadership Alliance. And this is pretty much being head up by Sean Harper. He's well known in the field in terms of racial equity work, and he's at USC. We recently joined this organization. There are about 72 colleges and universities that's part of this organization. But what it does is a 12-month curriculum and is led by race equity experts. It provides online resource library of rubrics, readings, and case studies, provides guidance on designing action plans. Campus climate surveys are provided to member institutions for students, faculty, and staff. And then there's quarterly opportunities for presidents of the colleges and universities to meet and discuss strategy. The whole focus of this group is that liberal arts colleges together, we can share best practices and our experiences and strategies and to try to eradicate racial inequities on our campuses. We have a number of initiatives that come out of our office that I wanted to point your attention to. The Impact Group, which is an intercultural and multicultural professionals advancing change together. This is an affinity group for faculty and staff of color and their allies. They get together. It's sort of like a networking, but learning from each other and having crucial conversations together. And similar to Colleagues of Color is a cultural affinity group, and that's our office and a number of campus partners. And they get together similarly for networking and discussing various topics and having crucial conversations. The Productive Discomfort Group is a faculty affinity group, and they're focused on inclusive teaching. And I would say the Productive Discomfort Group is mostly faculty who are already engaged in the work, and they're sharing best practices and tools that's worked for them in the work that they do. The Intercultural Yoga is a podcast that Raymond does, and other team members are going to get more involved in the Intercultural Yoga podcast. But it came out of some of the Black Lives Matter and the protest around the George Floyd killing, but has continued because people have enjoyed the various topics that come up on the podcast. And then the Campus Climate Survey, we're scheduled to do that every 4 years, but we put it on hiatus until spring of 2022, sorry. Diversity Digest is another way that we communicate internally. We have 1,200 faculty and staff that receive it, and also alumni also receive it. And it's just a communication about what our office is doing or things that are happening externally or internally. And we invite faculty and staff to contribute to the Diversity Digest. Here's some key priorities. I'm going to go over them quickly. We have Diversity EDU, and that's an online intercultural skill development program for faculty and staff. Right now, we're at 69%. We're just under 800 faculty and staff, and the breakout is 45% of faculty that signed up for it have completed the program. About 57% of staff have completed it. As part of this program, Raymond and I, we go out and we do what we call a debrief with departments, where we talk about the learnings. We have some discernment around it, and then we use it for planning. So we gather qualitative data to see what is the next step for the university in terms of building our DEI programs and initiatives. The underrepresented postdoc program, fellows program, is for underrepresented minority candidates. They stay on our campus either 2 or 3 years. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but we use the program to diversify our faculty. Then I talked briefly about the DEI strategic plan, which we're working on. Hopefully we'll have some semblance of a draft either the end of the spring semester or sometime in the summer, but we want to have a draft before fall starts. And then we'll start sharing in parts of that document. And then we're looking at faculty diversity recruitment. We're looking at updating the faculty policy on recruitment to meet the university's faculty and staff diversity goals of being 20% by 2025. And in particular, we start with faculty and hopefully develop some partnerships with human resources and other hiring demand managers for staff, sorry. Here's a quick snapshot of moving from diversity EDU to embedding DEI in all the development for the organization. We need to review policies and procedures, systems and strategies that we're using. Develop DEI curriculum from diversity EDU, use adult education models. So start with introduction, awareness, knowledge, and then skill building, facilitated discussions, workshops, teach-ins, peer education can be very effective. Actually taking a look at some courses and certificate programs, book clubs, reading groups, and then perhaps having a focus where the entire campus either has a common reading or we have a diversity education week or some type of focus for the entire campus. Really quick on a underrepresented postdoc program. Like I mentioned before, we feel that this is our way to diversify the professorate at Gonzaga. We want to look at this program. It's being reimagined. It's been around for a couple years, but our provost came in and she recognized that we were developing these exemplary, excellent teachers, but they're leaving the university to go to other institutions. And so there's a retention issue. And then we were only getting our postdocs from the University of Washington. And so now as it's being reimagined, we want to go to top tier graduate programs, for example, the University of Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, University of Utah, to name a few. And then also to minority serving institutions where students have had some exposure to culture programs, ethnic studies, critical race studies, Chicano studies, for example. And then also we wanted to look at other social sciences, humanities, especially the STEM fields to take a look. And we want to move beyond just asking, potential postdocs if they are committed to diversity, equity, inclusion. We want to take a deep dive into the CVs to see, what conferences memberships do they have? Are they members of group of SACNAS or Black scientist organizations? And where are they publicizing their research? Are they publicizing their research in journals that reach a diverse and broad audience? We're going to look at all that as well. And then I think the other thing I want to point out about the program that I think is, I guess, more unique than it's been before is that, we have student activists that are engaged and thinking about how we can have them be part of the program. And that is perhaps through an advisory council that has, faculty and students and staff as part of it. That can be advisory to the program. And then taking a look at the student groups and involving them. So we have a number of student affinity groups and building them into the recruitment process of the postdoc so that they can have a meeting with the postdoc candidates and maybe a meet and greet or a coffee chat, but making them part of that process. And then we have some faculty members that was part of the program prior to it being reimagined and revised that we want to continue to engage them. We have a strong mentoring component that's part of this program. So either as mentors or supporting postdoc fellows as they go into departments and making sure they're properly acclimated. And then we're going to update our website and have some internal communications about the program on a regular basis. Now, here's some collaborative partnerships that we have. The bias team, so I mentioned it earlier, Dr. Reyes, he's on the bias team. Sometimes I get pulled into reports from the bias team, but this is a strong relationship. And the bias team primarily is, it supports our efforts to create an inclusive climate. And as I mentioned before, we're looking at the organization, how it's organized and the structure to improve it. Here's some additional partnerships we have: the Center for Humanities, Mission and Ministry. We're working together on mission-centered hiring, campus climate. Dr. Reyes is doing a course with one of the members of Mission and Ministry. For example, we collaborate with the Center for Civil and Human Rights. DICE, our College of Arts and Sciences, School of Businesses, so all of our academic units as well. We have collaborative partnerships with them. And then this piece, we're looking forward to, as the office grows and gets connected with other groups, we want to engage our alumni. We're looking at, alumni affinity groups, connecting alumni with students and student affinity groups, creating and supporting other DEI initiatives specifically tailored for alumni, and then working very closely with university advancement for alumni. So I often like to, and I might use it too much, but I like to end my talks or meetings with, engaging you and thinking about this work and all. I went over all this stuff, and I did pretty good because sometimes I talk a really long time, but I like to engage people in the work that we're doing. So everyone that's on here, that's affiliated or part of the Gonzaga community, as you think about DEI work, I want you to think about, what are you going to start doing and get involved? What are you going to continue doing? So if you're already involved and you think this is the way I can support what's happening around this, and then what is it that you're going to stop doing from this point forward? I'm going to end with this. If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. Okay.